For most of our history, humans didn't have to look very far to find their purpose. The answers usually came from a pre-written cosmic script, often a divine text or a strict tradition that provided a clear, step-by-step instruction manual for how to live. But as those traditional foundations face modern scrutiny, that manual is disappearing for many. The empirical reality of our origins replaces that manual with cosmology. Our existence starts precisely 13.8 billion years ago, expanding outward from an incredibly hot, dense point into a vast, unguided universe. From that initial expansion, it took immense stretches of time for a specific, unintentional mechanism to take over on Earth. We are the complex survivors of a nearly 4 billion-year chain of biological evolution, driven entirely by random genetic changes and the filtering of natural selection. This scientific reality removes the concept of a predetermined cosmic blueprint. There is no specific, pre-written plan waiting out there for humanity to discover. Stripping away that old script leaves an immediate psychological vacuum. We arrive very late in this immense astronomical timeline, incredibly complex, entirely undefined, and with no overarching purpose handed to us upon arrival. Arriving perfectly blank is a terrifying philosophical crisis. If our species is the result of astronomical odds and biological randomness, it means we are born without a fixed human nature or a pre-assigned soul. The philosopher Jean-Paul Sartre captured the weight of this condition with a single phrase: existence precedes essence. If you make a coffee mug, its essence, to hold liquid, is decided before it ever exists. But for humans, Sartre argued, we simply appear first. We exist, and then we have to define our own essence entirely through the choices we make and the actions we take every single day. The immediate consequence of this radical freedom is what existentialists called anguish. It is the dizzying realization that there are no ultimate excuses and no higher powers to shift the blame onto. You make a choice, and you stand entirely alone and bearing the responsibility for it. When you make a significant choice, you are presenting a model of humanity. Your actions propose how a person should act in that moment, for everyone. This existential dread marks the mandatory starting point for an authentic life. You can reframe that terrifying void by looking closely at the math of your own biology. Every living thing represents an unbroken chain of successful reproduction that survived mass extinctions, cosmic radiation, and global climate shifts. The sheer improbability of your specific life existing right now is staggering. That 4 billion-year chain of survival provides a rational baseline for valuing life. Existence is the outcome of a tenacious, mathematically improbable persistence. If existentialism defines the scope of our freedom, humanist psychology, the third force, defines the potential within it. This diagram illustrates the framework used to organize that freedom into a proactive vision for personal growth. Notice how the structure keeps building upward. This approach rejects the idea that humans are fundamentally broken or defined by conflict. Instead, it posits that we have an innate, lifelong drive towards psychological health and peak growth. This upward momentum is self-actualization. It means you take the blank slate of your existence and actively develop your specific capabilities, working to express the most authentic version of yourself over the course of your life. The indifference of the universe is required for this to work. A pre-written destiny would leave no room for your agency. The void is simply the blank canvas your biological drive needs to start painting. But creating that meaning is difficult when our brains constantly drift away from the present. We easily get paralyzed by ruminating on past mistakes we cannot change, or projecting anxieties onto a future we cannot control. Secular mindfulness acts as a practical tool to sever that mental time travel. By intentionally paying non-judgmental attention to the current moment, you force your brain to engage with reality exactly as it is unfolding, right now. The present is the only place you actually have the power to act, and those actions rarely happen in isolation. We are social primates, wired deeply for cooperation. Survival has always depended on forming dense connections, pulling our individual focus outward toward the group. Your self-actualization finds its maximum resonance when it impacts others. Whether it is nurturing a family, contributing to science, or building a community, applying your unique energy to the flourishing of the people around you grounds your personal journey in a shared reality. Meaning is never something you stumble across under a rock. It is a highly active construction project, built moment by moment through conscious action and human connection. If we are entirely free to create our own meaning, how do we stop that freedom from collapsing into selfish chaos? Society still needs an objective way to agree on what is right and wrong. The first pillar, rational ethics, uses reason to identify moral principles based on observable human needs. It rejects the idea that morality requires a divine command, arguing instead that we can identify how certain actions, like cruelty, inherently produce suffering, while others, like cooperation, foster the well-being required for a stable society. The second pillar, utilitarianism, scales those outcomes up. It judges the morality of an action by its consequences, aiming to minimize deep suffering and maximize long-term flourishing for the greatest number of people in the matrix. The third pillar, virtue ethics, moves away from calculating specific situations and focuses entirely on the individual's character. It is the lifelong practice of cultivating positive daily habits, like honesty, courage, and compassion. This traces directly back to Aristotle. He argued that if you consistently practice these ethical habits, right actions follow naturally, leading to eudaimonia, a state of genuine human flourishing and living well. The final pillar is the social contract. To leave a chaotic state of nature, free people rationally agree to give up a small amount of absolute freedom in exchange for mutual protection. We see this manifested daily in democratic laws and civil rights: rationality, outcomes, character, and agreement. These four distinct frameworks interlock to form a highly sophisticated, objective moral architecture. It requires no divine authority, relying entirely on human reason and empathy. The humanist framework removes the safety net of blind faith in a cosmic plan. In its place, it demands active, conscious, and rational participation in reality. You are the architect designing the blueprint. You are the builder doing the labor. And your own brief, improbable existence is the raw material used to construct your purpose. So the question is what you will do with the material. Choose one specific action today that leverages your unique potential. Define your essence through a concrete choice and shape it into something that contributes to the people around you. A universe without a predetermined instruction manual can be deeply intimidating, but that exact absence of a plan is the only thing that gives you the freedom to truly define yourself.